So the big news remain one of the most outspoken words that we must see in every of our words today. We're people who cannot be intimidated, we're people who cannot be thrown aside. But one thing I want to assure Biafrans is that we are already moving with a maximum speed, and our speed is more than that of a lightning. M16, M26 is ready, and more M's will be supplied in the nearest future. But let's don't be derailed, or let's don't be disfocused, because there's a reason for every season. Biafra has remained one of the most outspoken people in Africa. We refuse to be bent, we refuse to be intimidated, we refuse to be rejected. One thing is very sure, and one thing will continue to be sure, that we are going to be a people who will fight for justice, and we're going to restore the mandate of Biafra on this very soil. One of the most exceptional things I have learned throughout these years is knowing what is right and doing it. There's a difference between knowing what is right and doing what is right. Some of you know what is right, but you prefer to do what is wrong. So the proclamation of the gospel of Biafra must continue to excel. And that's just it. We must continue in every part to configure the message of truth. So, as we spread this very gospel, we must as well understand that Biafra has remained a big energy for our enemies to handle. Yes, Biafra has become a big energy for our enemies to handle. One of the very big reasons that we must continue to hold this gospel to the very end. This is the reason for this preaching. Ka anyị na-eme ihe anyị na-eme, na-ayọkwa Chukwu na-ese gịnị, ya o mezuoro anyị. Ya o mezuoro anyị iwu a ka ọ dịkwa anyị mma. Yes, because to be a great light, a great figure, and a word of wisdom where a lot of people must see the very preservative of which we preach. And that is just the point where we must say we have had enough. That point where all of us must say that we have had enough. So, as we continue to go towards the end of the road, I have a message to leave to every Biafran, and to those who value this message to a higher esteem. Let's don't forget that there is a point where one must notice, and that is the very beginning of the gospel. A point where one can be positioned in a nurturable way. We are coming with maximum speed, and our educational level is getting closer and better. But we cannot put ourselves aside. And this is the point to preserve the Biafran gospel. Very big wind on what we preach on a daily basis. And one of it is the true sense of nature. The true sense of nature. And that is where the whole thing started from. You see, we cannot be intimidated by what we preach or what we teach. But the most important thing here is that we're people that comprise the nature of what we share. and the things we continue to conserve. And this is the biggest story that we share. So Biafra has remained a voice that we must continue to hold on to. And that's where the whole situation room has begun. We must continue. You know that. You know that. We must continue. Now there's every attitude and every concern on the things that we push. Because one of the most important things here we have to admit is that no matter what happens, we must put ourselves in that very scenario where we are one big people. And that's where the whole story lies. So as we continue to contact the very audacity and more peculiar knowledge, we must see ourselves in that big light, in that bigger picture, where consistency remains the question of the day. There's no two ways about it. I guess Yoma is here to the last. And by so doing, we must put ourselves together to see the very outcome of what we pursue. So the M26, remember that the M16 was delivered a few months ago, and now the M16 is delivered again. This is just the beginning of what we pursue. There's a greater knowledge in what we spread, and before you know it, things will begin to fly from left to corner, from corner to left, and this victory will be announced. That is how Biafra come about. Let's just be guided. We have to understand these things, the way they work. And that is where the whole situation room must begin. So, as we continue in this path, let's not, with any kind of viscosity, promote fear in our tribe.